Hello, it's Charles Fockaert on February the 4th, 2019. I welcome all of you, and I want to thank you for your support of this channel. And don't let me forget, I got something I want to bring up at the end of this video about support. I want to talk about the idea that, like I've said many times before, that most people live in an illusionary world. They've created, or they've had created for them, a world, a perception of the world they live in that is not reality, that is not based on the truth. And hold on, I got to get the booklet. They don't realize that everything they think they know, everything that they believe, almost without exception, is a lie. Everything that we've been told is a lie. And they can't accept that. And I wanted to read again out of this little booklet, Rules for Revolution, the Alinsky model. And he talks about the essence of what it means to be a radical is thus summed up in Alinsky's praise for Satan. To be willing to destroy the values, structures, and institutions that sustain the society in which we live. So these people, these communists, and we know where communism had its beginning. The fellow's name was Karl Marx. He was the son of a rabbi. His real name was Mordecai. Anyway, these people, these communists, they don't care what's going to happen after the society that they are hell-bent on bringing down and seeing it's ruined. They don't know what's going to happen next. They just say, well, we'll worry about that when we get there. So they're willing to bring down every established institution, every long-held belief, every symbol of what holds together our society, and they're willing to do that. They're willing to destroy our society by any means whatsoever. We've got to understand, we've got to get it in our minds that that's who we're up against. These people are not sane. Nobody in their right mind brings down the very society that they live in without knowing what they're going to, how they're going to replace the society that they bring down. They have no idea. And one example is the new bent. Our nation, our young people have been trained, have been programmed, have been brainwashed into an illusionary thinking of the world that's not going to work. They can tell it's not going to work just by looking at Venezuela. See? They're not sane. They're not logical. They're not reasonable. Okay, enough of that. But I want to talk about one aspect of how they're going to, how they have ruined, how they are ruining the financial world that we all live in, and we all have to operate within to make a living so that we can pay our bills. They don't even care if that whole structure comes falling down on and it almost did back in 2008. And they made us pay for their mistakes. And anyway, I want to get into the topic here, usury. Let's go have a look at the meaning of some words, usury and interest, shall we? Alrighty, here we are again with that Alinsky quote. Alinsky praised Nakash, Satan, for the willingness to destroy the values, structures, and institutions that sustain the society in which we live. Before we go on to usury, I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit of review on the last video I did. Eve beguiled. We have Nakash here, beguiling, sexually seducing Eve. And that's just an example of how Satan, our enemy, Nakash, the seducer, the enchanter, he went about in the garden there, attacking Eve, the female, while she was separated from her husband. Now, I don't want to go into that too far because that's not the topic, but it's related. Satan will attack our beliefs, our structure, our institutions, our way of life at each and every point, at each and every, he'll attack each and every aspect of how we live without caring what the end result will be. I'm not going to read this entire paragraph here, but I'm going to read the highlights or the point I want to get across. Let's start here. This is in Black's Law Dictionary, the 5th edition. Collectively, the laws of a jurisdiction regulating the charging of interest rates. A usurious loan is one whose interest rates are determined to be in excess of those permitted by the usury laws. And then down here, an unconscionable or exorbitant rate or amount of interest. So there we have it. Today's understanding, today's belief in the idea of interest is that it's only the only interest that's usury is that which is an unconscionable and exorbitant rate or amount. It's not that interest in itself is bad. It's that a too high of a rate is bad. Is actually usury, and so interest is accepted. The return above and beyond the principal on a loan is acceptable. Is accepted, and that goes contrary to what the law of God says in both the Old Testament and the New, and we're going to have a look at that in a minute. The point I want to make here is that most people's idea of an exorbitant or a usurious rate of interest is one that's too high. Never mind that the Visa cards and the MasterCards charge, 19%, 25% and higher. All right, so you see that's not exorbitant still, but a mortgage rate, 30-year, 4%, 5%. When I was working as a real estate developer and selling my homes, that's what the interest rate was, and even a little bit higher. It was very difficult to get someone qualified to purchase the homes that I built. And so I'm very familiar with interest rates and how they work. But interest rates, there was another way that houses could have been sold and not be dependent on the interest rate, but I don't have time to go into that right now. But I want to show you here that our conception of interest is completely wrong. And I bring that up because everybody is in debt. We're in debt all over the world. Every country almost is in debt, over and beyond, way beyond the amount of income that they can receive by the products that they produce. their production is nowhere near enough to pay even the interest. The interest alone on the money to some of these places. Places like Venezuela, Italy, Greece, Turkey's having a problem. Mexico. It's all in United States. United States alone is way, way, way over their head in debt. It's like everything added up. It's multiples times the GDP, the gross national product of the entire United States, and it's that way all around the world. That's why they have to back off now on this idea that they're going to raise the interest rate, because the debt our society, our culture, the world, as a whole has said debt is okay. That students are in debt, homeowners are in debt, people are buying things they don't need that they want in debt. The cities are in debt. The counties, I heard where the majority of the major cities in the United States are broke. Pension funds are not going to get paid. It just goes on and on and on and on. The problem this time around, and they're not going to be able to solve the problem this time by printing more money. You know why interest is bad? Let me show. The interest rates are bad because Scripture says it's bad. Doesn't really explain it. He says don't charge interest. And we're going to get to that in a minute. This is why interest is so bad, and we're not to charge interest. Okay, let's say you go to the bank. Let's say Mr. Benjamin Franklin here, number one. Benjamin Franklin here, number one. He goes to the bank and he says, I want to borrow $100. So the bank says, okay, you look like you can repay the loan. You got a good job. They loan him $100 at 5% interest. In 1 year, he's got to come back with $5 more. Okay. So then Mr. Franklin number two walks in. He says, I want $100. Maybe it's his twin brother. There we go. So his twin brother walks in and says, hey, you gave my brother a loan for $100. Can I get a loan for $100? We both work at, yeah, okay. So they loan Benjamin Franklin's twin brother $100. He's got to come back in a year's time with another $5 to pay the $5 interest. Well, can you see what the problem is? They created the $100 for the Franklin twins, but they didn't create the interest. So the interest rate has got to come from, you try doing this, okay? The interest rate's got to come from someplace. And when they constrict, when they reduce the amount of credit in the economy, when they do quantitative tightening, there's not enough money out there to get the extra $5. The two brothers can't get the other $5 just to pay the interest, and so they default on their loan. So that's why it doesn't work. The people who loan the $100, they create the $200 out of thin air. They can't create the interest. That's the problem. That's the crux of the problem. Now multiply that times trillions of dollars. You understand what's going on now? All right, let's go have a look at what the old English law, what the old common law definition of usury is. We're in Black's again, Black's Law Dictionary. In the Old English law, usury was considered the interest of money, increase for the loan of money, reward for the use of money. That's found in the second volume of Blackstone's Commentaries, page 454. Goes on here, the taking of any compensation, whatever, for the use of money. Okay, we're in eSword, and I did a search in eSword. You can see up here in the corner, left-hand corner, usury, and it's found down here. At the bottom, it's 17 verses are found, and it's 24 matches. So 24 times in the entire Bible up here is the word usury, and we can just look at a few of these. Neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. Leviticus 25:36. Take thou no usury of him. Leviticus 25:37. Thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother. Usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury. Now that's too much to get into in this video, but I'll get into that a little bit later. The idea of lending to a stranger. But you can see here, usury is outlawed. Usury is outlawed, except in the Old Testament here, and we don't have time to go into that either. I'm sorry, not the Old Testament, in the New Testament, Matthew 25:27 and Luke 19:23. That's a whole another subject, and I'll get into that and I'll get into that in the future, Yahweh willing. And here we have it's in Ezekiel, the taking in usury, the taking of an increase is condemned here in Ezekiel 22:12. And we could also go to Nehemiah chapter 5. It's also condemned. There we have it. Scriptures against usury of any kind. And usury, according to Second Blackstone's commentary, the taking of any compensation whatever for the use of money. That was the old English law, the common law. And you can bet your bottom dollar that Thomas Jefferson, Franklin, Paine, and all the rest of the founding fathers and men of those days, they all read Blackstone's commentary. It should be obvious that the debt and the interest on that debt is unsustainable, and that's what's going to bring down the world's financial system. And this is the first time in world history that all of the fiat currencies are unbacked by either gold or silver. And that's why we see these nations scrambling for gold. They all want the gold. And you know what? The indications are the United States government has zero gold. We've been plundered, folks. We're going to wake up from our illusionary world, and we're going to realize that right out from under our noses, like what happened on September the 11th, 2001, they took gold out of the bottom, out of the basements. I remember seeing the videos. They've since been scrubbed. They were backing up the armored cars, and they were loading the gold up. All the gold in the United States that used to belong to the people of the United States, the white people of the United States, is gone. That's my guess, folks. But who am I? So the interest, the debt, it's not just the interest, but it's the debt, and then the interest on that debt is what's going to bring down the entire financial system. I believe we're going to go to they're going to try to patch it, and that's going to be the first fix. They're going to try to use something Bitcoin type or that kind of a currency, a cryptocurrency. Try to keep things together with bubble gum and tie wire and some tape, some duct tape. I gotta have a roll of duct tape. They're going to use a lot of duct tape on the first one. It's not going to work, and they're going to have to go to gold and silver again, and mostly gold internationally. And that's when the price of gold is going to shoot through the roof, and you're not going to believe the price. What I believe is going to happen is that whoever's willing to step out, whatever nation's willing to step out and say, well, we're willing to pay X number of our currency for an ounce of gold, and you can come here, you bring your gold here, and we'll give you our currency. That's where that's when the price will be set, and that'll happen after they try to fix the currency with, like I said, with the bubble gum, and they're going to try to patch it together. Maybe a special drawing rights in a basket of currencies. It's not going to work. They're going to have to go to gold again. You know, we were on the gold standard until 1971. That's within my lifetime. It's very interesting as a student of economics to watch what's going on within my lifetime. One more time in Scripture, let's go have a look at Nehemiah chapter 5. Let's go have a look there of what they thought was too much interest. Too much interest, folks. I don't want to take the time right now to go into the background too much, and you can always look into Nehemiah on your own. But I'm going to jump in here at chapter 5, verse 10. I likewise and my brethren and my servants might exact of them money and corn. I pray you, let us leave off this usury. Verse 11, restore, I pray you, to them even this day their lands, their vineyards, their olive yards, and their houses, and also the 100th part of the money, and of the corn, the wine, and the oil that ye exact of them. Then said they, we will restore them, and will require nothing of them. What happened is that a lot of the Israelites had to sell their property to their more wealthy brethren. And Nehemiah came back to them and said, hey, you need to give their stuff back to them. And even the 100th part of money, that word there in Hebrew is kesef. It can be translated money or silver. Silver is money. But even 100th or 1% was too much. And so they agreed. They didn't have an argument. They said, you're right, we're going to do what you've asked of us. And they went on and they made an oath with the priest. They were going to return everything to them, including the 1% usury. The point is, even 1% interest, 100th part was too much. And that's why their entire usury system is unsustainable, and we're at the very, very end of it now, worldwide. And that's not to say that people won't go, when this is all over, won't go back to paying interest. But when I was working as a real estate developer and contractor, I used to think about this all the time. As I was building places to rent and homes I rented out, apartments, it's not who pays the rent who gets wealthy. It's who receives the rent who gets wealthy. And we have a particular group of people that are into banking. And they're the ones who create money out of thin air. And then they charge our government's interest for the privilege of using their money, which is something that our government could do on their own, which is what the National Socialists did in Germany, 1930s. And yet most people don't have a clue as to why Germany was attacked the way they were. We have the same problem in this country today. How many years later? We have the same people controlling the narrative. We have the same group of people controlling the money supply. And we have the same group of people attacking our society, our culture, the Western civilization, now even to the point where they're willing to kill, they're willing to allow the murder of whites in South Africa. They're also attacking the white Caucasian masculinity only for the white man now. You can be a virile, whatever it is, black athlete, and that's cool. You can go out there and be masculine on the football field if you're a black man, but don't you dare express your manhood, your masculinity if you're a white male. Well, it took since I'd say about 1965, because that's when they started creating money out of thin air. And as you can see, I've already said this. I'm just going to go over real quickly. They didn't create the $5 each interest. They didn't create the other 10% that has to be paid. I'm sorry, the other 5% that has to be paid. And that's what's going to cause this contraction, because everybody's going to be scrambling in this Ponzi scheme. The music's going to come to a stop. Those of you who have a chair built of currency, fiat currency, and 401k plans and pension plans, and your assets are all hung up in this debt-based system, you're going to end up with zero, just like I did. They took everything away from me, and they're going to take everything away from you eventually. It's just going to take them a little longer. So, yeah, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm just telling you to don't have an illusionary view of the world. This is going to come down. It's not going to be pleasant. We're going to pay for having consumed in the present what we should have saved for in the future. And we went into debt in the present. So there's going to be a long period of time where there's not going to be, people are not going to have the income to be able to purchase again. We're headed for a slowdown the likes of the world's never seen before, folks. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting this channel. By the way, the other day, let me grab it. The other day I went to the P.O. box and I found this envelope inside there, and I said, well, that's different. There's no return address and everything, and I opened it up, and wow, 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 and wow, and a letter, a little note. And I want to thank Mr. D there in North Houston, Texas. And I could do a whole video on this right here itself, folks. But I did want to thank Dylan in Texas there, in the once great state of Texas. And I got to thinking, I said, well, you know what? I remember seeing something from North Houston, Texas before that I didn't open, and I had put it in my box, and so I just forgot about it because I was busy moving or something was going on, and I put it away, and I found another envelope with a wow wow in it. So Dylan, hey, thanks, man. I'm gonna I will make sure it gets your wow wows get put to good use, buddy. I want to thank you for that. And that brings me to the end of this video, and I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. And we're all in this together, folks, and we all need Yahweh's grace. And may I ask His grace upon us all at this time, for we most certainly need it. See ya.